Hello everyone, this is FIDE Master Viktor Neustroev and I'm glad to start the next cycle of our group classes. At this cycle we are going to talk about how to attack and how to defend our positions when we play our chess games. Before we start, please let me know whether the sound and video quality is good. This meeting is recording, which means that you are going to get the link to the recording after the end of the class. Well, maybe not immediately after the end of the class, but in a few hours. Maybe I have to edit it. Also, I'm recording this event by using two different cameras. And well, I think that's the quality this time will be much better. Anyway, everything seems to be good. I'm happy that 7 students joined our classes, joined this exact class, and I'm sure there'll be more next lesson, or at least this amount. Well, let me just quickly tell you what we are going to work on. So I'm sure that you saw that landing page where I announced this course. We're going to talk about attack, when we can start attack, how exactly to attack, and which devices to use to attack, and also how to defend the position, because many chess players like to attack but don't know how to defend. For example, I have a student who thinks that once his king is exposed, doesn't matter what material erasure is on the board, his position is completely losing. And he is more than 1200 on chess.com. Of course, he always overvalue the attack of his opponent, but in order to be able to realize extra material in the position when your king is exposed, you should remember how to defend. So defense is also like defensive skill is a part and parcel of a chess player arsenal. So recently, just today, I was talking to a grandmaster. He's helping me with my new course about Italian game for white. And he actually told me that nowadays the engine thinks that Italian game, I mean the positions which appears in Italian game are approximately equal, mainly because of enough defensive resources. And the engine can defend the position for black. However, a human not. So even if you, let's say, analyze your game, turn the engine on, and then you see that, well, you have just a little advantage or even don't have any advantage at all, it doesn't mean that you cannot win, and it doesn't mean that your attack is unsuccessful. So you're playing against human player. Don't think that your opponent will play the best moves only and will play like an engine. So if he does so, he's a cheater. So most likely a human player makes a mistake, even if it's a grandmaster. So our task by doing the attack is to provoke him to make such a mistake and take advantage of this mistake. Okay, fine. So there will be 8 lessons, and each lesson will be about 90 minutes. Sometimes more than 90 minutes. After each class, you are going to receive the recording, as I said, but also a homework. What kind of homework? Usually it's 3-4 positions related to the topic that we were covering at the class. So, and I'm not going to give you just puzzles where your task is to find the combination and win the game based on this combination. Well, I'll give you a position. It will be similar to tests that I was providing you. at our last cycle, where your task is to think, okay, so what, okay, so if Victor says that we were talking about the king side attack, then by which means white or black should continue with such an attack in this exact position. And your task will be to suggest the plan, mainly the plan, not a concrete move. Sometimes it is a concrete move, and based on this concrete move, you can figure out your future plan then. Well, how I'm going to give you access to this homework? There will be a PDF with positions, so you can first look at these diagrams, and then think first of all what you would play in this or that position, and second, you can check answers. There will be a link to a lead chess study where you could enter and check the answers, so you can make the moves on the board. Fine. So today we are going to start with the preconditions of the attack on the enemy king. So who can tell me which conditions have to be met in order, well, to allow one of the players to initiate the attack? So who knows? Yes, so you can unmute yourself or you can type it in the chat. It's up to you. Erosh says that less pieces near the king. So if the enemy king is not protected by his pieces, then yes, we may start an attack. Okay, Brian make a very reasonable notice, so that approximately we should have 5 points or more of material attacking than defending. So in order to initiate the attack, we should have material advantage on the flank, and our material advantage should be greater than 5 points or 5 pawns. So at least we should have extra rook into the attack. But it doesn't mean that these pieces should be obligatorily located on the king side where the enemy king is, or on the queen side if the king is on the queen side. It means that you should have the ability to bring these pieces to the king side, to let them to participate in the attack within a few moves. Dan says spatial advantage. So some advantage in space, well, definitely that's right, but not obligatory. However, if we see that we have space advantage, well, we may consider an attack. Okay, so I decided to divide all these preconditions into 4 different criteria. What these criteria are? Well, first of all, as we all agreed, it's material advantage on the flank where the enemy king is. And yes, it should be either material advantage that you have at the moment or your ability to bring more resources to participate in this king side attack rather than your opponent brings defensive resources to defend his king position. Second, and in my opinion, one of the most important things, a closed or a stable center. What does it mean? If the center is closed, your opponent is unlikely to obtain a counterplay. That means that you can spend tempi on the king side attack. So ideally, the center should be closed like it is in King's Indian. Or at least it should be stable, so it's not so easy for your opponent to undermine it and initiate a counterplay. We are going to talk about this on examples, of course. The third is better development or some advantage in development, which allows you to develop initiative. Especially it works when the king is in the center. And finally, we come to the fourth criterion, which is compromised position of the king. So this is what Erosh said first. So that's less pieces near the king, almost. But not only fewer defensive pieces, but also the king's position should be compromised. What does it mean? The king can be exposed. For example, his pawn structure is ruined, or the king is located in the center, or he is located on the open file, or you have a chance to expose the king's position right away and still have enough resources to deliver a checkmate. Well, and remember, the goal of your attack is not always a checkmate. So the goal is either to checkmate or to obtain enough material advantage to pass the game to a favorable endgame. Or maybe you can use your attack in order to defend against the enemy activity on the other side of the board. So this is how you switch his attention to defensive functions rather than doing some active threats on the other side of the board. Okay, so let's now play the game. It's a kind of a quiz. I'll show the position and you tell me because of which criterion white or black can initiate the attack. Take a look at this position. So why black in this position may initiate their attack? Is it material advantage? Is it close center, better development, or compromised position of the king? Sometimes you have several factors combined together. So what's your opinion? Which of these three? Close center. Right, the center is closed. And maybe this is the main factor, because with a closed center, there is no way to use these rooks. Well, so here it's a closed center and yeah, and maybe compromised position of the king. So I think Dan is absolutely correct because there is a pin and you can take advantage of it. White pieces are not active. Well, true, but how do we win? By the way, how would you play in this position? Okay, Brian, yes, you're absolutely right. Knight h1 taking advantage of the pin. So if king takes, you can take the rook and also bring your queen to the place of action, which is on the king side, and continue your attack. I'm not sure that you can checkmate, but well, white is definitely in the trouble. He will be down a piece, right? He'll be down a piece, and also you will continue the attack by doing these moves. Fine. Right. The next one. What can you say about this position? This time we don't have a queen. However, it's still possible to continue the attack for black. What do you think black should do? And because of which factor it's possible for black to continue the attack? So then here says that the king is stuck in the center in its open board. Generally speaking, we may conclude that the king's position is compromised. So here even, well, we can win the queen back. And how to play? I think this is the answer is obvious. Rook d8. It's rook d8, after which the king has to go to c4. Well, how to? We can capture on c2 right away. Let me see if it's the best move. Or we have anything else? Yeah, we have bishop e6 in this position. We have bishop e6, we have bishop f8 then. Or if we don't want to lose a pawn, okay, let's do this. And if he goes that way, we play bishop e6, chase him away, and then take there and continue our attack. So this is how it works. Fine. The next example, what about this position? Because of which factor black can initiate the attack? Yeah, here it's definitely a compromised king. Also, the activity of our pieces allows us successfully to take advantage of it. So we want to play queen f2. However, right now it doesn't work. So you think rook d3? Rook d3, bishop d3. Maybe it doesn't work so well. Bishop d3, bishop d3, bishop takes d3. Rook e1, knight e1. So they still cover f2 with their pieces. Okay, well, there is no immediate tactic. Here, actually, you have to play c5 and then c4 and then bring the knight. It chases the queen away and f2 becomes more vulnerable. If you play bishop h2 in that variation when you exchange on e1, so let me actually make these moves on the board. You originally suggested this, but it doesn't work because f2 is covered, and if you play this move, they retreat back and defend g1. So it fails. You actually have to play c5 here. And then it's hard to suggest a move. So if they, let's say, play this, then bishop e1, knight takes e1, and connection of the sides. They lose material. Well, obviously they cannot do this move. It's pinned. They can try to capture with the king. It fails too. How does it fail? Well, queen g6 is the move. Also, knight c4, b takes c4, and bishop takes c4. So you're threatening to take, and if the king moves away, then you can start with rook move and then capture on d3. So it is a disaster. Fine, but it's not an easy task. You have to bring more resources, so you have to notice this feature, and you have to notice the idea of c4. It's definitely not easy to find, but we see that the king's position is compromised, and that's why we should be looking for ideas of how to bring our resources to attack the king. So we are not thinking about other plans, because there is an indicator. So once you see that you have material advantage on the flank, you see the center is close to stable, you see there you have a better development and it's possible to develop initiative, or you see that the position of the king is compromised, you should like, okay, I can start the attack on the enemy king, and it's likely to be a good plan. Maybe there is another plan. For example, okay, you have one of these or even several factors, but you also have a passed pawn that you are likely to promote. Of course, promoting the pawn may lead to a quick win rather than doing rather than doing the attack on the king. This position. So which factor tells us that white can play for a win? So unsafe king, it's not castle yet. So the king's position. So you think the answer is that the king's position is compromised? Well, bishop b6 is not checkmate because bishop e6, b6, bishop e7, and their next move is castling. Dan is absolutely correct. It's advantage in development. Not only that the king's position is compromised, because just a few moves, if you play, let's say, bishop b6, they play bishop e7, and then what? So capturing there and then doing queen d8 fails, because the king, well, they take, and then the king gets a square to escape. You can slow down his castling by playing this, but then bishop e6, and again, it's not clear. And if they castle, they are fine. The king's position will be perfect. Here, you should use advantage in development, and by pressuring the king's position, find how to checkmate. Yes, so the best move here is bishop f6. How does it work? Let me explain. So you now threaten with mate. And bishop e7 this time doesn't help at all, because first you liquidate the defender of the d8, and then play queen d8, which leads to checkmate. If they don't play this, but for example, play that move, it's basically the same story. Rook takes, rook takes. If they play, what, queen takes, right? Yeah, then you use your rook, and this rook move forces him to block the e file with one of the bishops. For example, bishop e7. Now you can take again, pawn takes or queen takes, and queen d8 is checkmate because this bishop is pinned. Same story happens when the bishop goes to e6, but this time you deliver checkmate with queen d7. Well, knight e5, no, knight e5, rook e5, and then queen d8. So here advantage in development was correct answer. The next one, what about this position? This is a little hard. Because of which factor white can initiate their attack? There is one factor which is dominating among other factors. So here, this is the not the most correct answer. Actually, there is another factor which is more important here. Black pieces are stuck on the queen side. This is what Brian says, which means that it's actually material advantage on the king side. So the same block center. Well, even if, let's say, we didn't have the pawns on the d file, I think that it's still possible to continue the attack on the king side, and less pieces near the king. No, it's yes, almost. Well, I think that Arush is closer, so fewer pieces defending the king. But okay, so well, let's do it in a different way. First of all, let's decide which move we are going to play there. Okay, I see in the chat there is Johnny's answer. Brian suggests knight d6. Well, Brian, knight d6, bishop takes d6, bishop takes bishop, and you didn't achieve much because your knight on f5 is a very strong piece which allows you to attack these pawns. So exchanging such a knight, even for the bishop, isn't so promising. Yeah, so that's right. It's knight takes h6, but after g takes h6, you don't take with the queen, because if you take with the queen, you lose your rook. It's a check, and they have to take, otherwise you win on f7. And then you sacrifice here. And then you invade the enemy camp with your queen, and then play this, then you play that. So the main factor was the compromised position of the king. So doing knight h6 and exchanging here, attracting the king, allowed you to compromise the king's position, and then you took advantage of it because of better pieces coordination on the king's side and material majority on the king's side, of course. So this, and this is a winning position. So bishop h5 is the next move, I think. While rook g8 is a blunder. What else? Well, queen h7, bishop f4, bishop h6 is also checkmate. Knight g4, queen f6, or knight g4, even knight f6. So there is nothing to discuss. There are a lot of moves for black to play, but all they lose quickly. Fine. Then next position. So here, because of which factor white may succeed with the attack? Yeah, that's right. That's the first one. So they simply check and compromise the king's position, and then create threats. So rook h e1 is the first move. It's not immediate win, but actually it's immediate win. Because if he goes there, we take there. If he goes that way, there is queen h3, which chases him away, and we can deliver checkmate. Okay, just a few more left. What about this position? Eros, do you suggest to play rook takes h7 in this exact position? Anyway, I'm sure you understand the reason which allows you to attack here. It's the position of the king. It's definitely compromised. How you start the attack, it's up to you. But rook h7 looks very reasonable. Yeah, so his pawn shield was destroyed. So rook h7, if he doesn't take, it's game over. King takes queen h5. King goes to g8. Well, he can go to g7, but then queen h6. So he goes g8 and then so maybe a rook lift g6, knight g6. Yeah, well, they can also do some counterplay here. Okay, maybe rook h7 is a wrong move. Let me think. Can we do queen h5 instead? Yeah, okay, so if rook h7 doesn't work, then do not rush, because rook h8 and f7 is a weakness. And in this position, maybe just doing something simple like that. It neutralizes their knight, and we can even consider doing knight d5 after that. Because if knight d5 opens our bishop, it pins the knight, and we can take on f7 with checkmate in such a case. But yes, it's definitely the king's position. Yeah, so sacrificing the rook on h7 first is not required at all. And the last example here. Compromise king's position. Yes, we play. Stop the c pawn. Well, Brian, once you see that the king is compromised, attack it. So queen d2 wins the game. It's just checkmate. How do I see that the king is compromised? First, it's vulnerable. Second, it has no squares to move. It should have either a few or no squares. Fine. Okay. So why did I decide to use this quiz? Because I want you, when you play a chess game, I want you to quickly realize whether the attack on the enemy king is suitable for this position or not. So using these four criteria, you may recognize whether your attacking plan makes sense or your